But he didn't break any
I'll be right back. For those of you that are familiar with how I chair a meeting, I typically give a 5-minute grace period to start. So we will be beginning promptly at 10:35. So that's about a minute and a half. If anybody wants coffee that's here, please get it now. And thank you. We'll be starting in about a minute. Okay, Pete, go back to.
Do you have an extra
We're,
copy?
you know, is it really a 1 in 1,000 year event?
Oh, no, it was.
Yeah.
I think there's a white paper that we had done to South Florida. and we're Talking about.
Are we on?
Now we're on.
Okay, the hour of 10:35 arrived. As you know, I typically give 5-minute grace period, but not more. I would like to call this meeting of the South Florida Regional Planning Council to order on Monday, April 17th, 2023. I would like us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Frank Kaplan. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated, and I will ask whoever calls the roll, I'm never quite sure, to please call the roll. Okay, Kathy.
Bailey. Kaplan,
Here.
Kate,
Here.
Corradino,
Here.
Burr,
Here.
Garcia, Gilbert, Goldberg, Borland,
Here.
Kaufman,
Here.
Lincoln, here, McGee,
Here.
Eugene.
Yeah, he answered for me.
Udean's here, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Goldberg is present. Goldberg is present.
I don't want to sit right there.
Ross. Not here yet. Okay, Andriano,
How are you? Very good to see you.
Wynn, Geller.
Here. Do we have an in-person quorum, and if not, will we once Councilmember Ross arrives?
Chair, I think that you have a forum under the statute, which is Senate Bill 1398. To the extent that you have an executive committee in formation, you can rely upon that as an option. You have members that are present on the gallery, and I think it should comply with the statute. I think you'll be in full compliance when Mayor Ross arrives.
Very good, thank you.
Full quorum, but you have enough of a quorum to begin the meeting with your executive committee.
All right, so we have, can we count? Go ahead,
One,
say.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Um,
Third, right?
Third.
Okay, so.
And Kana.
Close enough.
I'm a little dog.
Right.
The dog gets to vote, however.
What is the?
Her name is Kana.
Councilmember Kana is here. Okay, so how many do we need for a in-person? How many do we need in person
You
for
need
a quorum?
one third of the membership are required by chapter.
And how many members are there?
There are technically 19.
Oh,
So we
they're
need-
19.
So we need 7.
Well, but they're not all
1, 2,
filled,
They're
right?
not all
Three.
filled.
So shouldn't it be a third of the
Of the-
filled
That's
positions?
been my argument for a period of years.
So
That's
that
why I
would
think
be
you gotta-
6?
We'll go with it.
That's why.
I support that.
And I think that's why you're covered.
You
It's a bit of an
convinced-
oddity.
Yes, we have a.
Yes, others will disagree with me as lawyers, but I'm a lawyer sitting here with you. So my best answer is that if there are vacancies on the council, which there are, and have not been filled, they don't
Yeah,
count.
but that's not our fault.
Well, you may have never-
Okay, we either have a quorum or will upon the arrival of Commissioner Ross, who I believe I just saw walking in. So I'd like to welcome everybody here and ask for motion to approve the council agenda. Moved by Councilmember Goldberg, seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Show the agenda adopted. The first order of business again is to extend, we've already done this in executive committee, our condolences to Councilmember Lincoln on the recent loss of her mother. So Councilmember Lincoln, you know, you have our deep sympathy. We've sent what we've done.
Beautiful orchids.
Orchids.
Beautiful
Thank
orchids.
you.
That was
And her
in the,
favorite color.
yes, that was in the order requirement that they had to be beautiful. But again, please extend, we've all, many of us at our age have lost our mother or both parents, and
Yeah.
you know, I know what that's like. I would like to move back to the agenda and item number 3, which is the search for a interim deputy director with the expectation that if we're satisfied with that person, that they will move on to become the director. We have gone through and I'm trying to remember.
We had 11 applicants.
It's not this week, is it?
No, it's the
Next, yeah,
27th.
27th. We received 11 applications for the position. We met the officers and narrowed that. Well, actually, no, not the officers, election committee, which I believe was me, Isabel, and Sam. And
First round.
just on the first round, and determined that there were 4 that were interviewing.
There's 4 that were.
That there were 4 people, there were probably 6 that we could have given, some were clearly unqualified. There were perhaps 5 or 6 that might have been, but really there were 4 that we determined should be interviewed. We are interviewing those people
April 27th.
on April 27th. And Sam, who is this election committee?
Selection committee is yourself, Senator Garcia,
Senator Kaufman.
Senator-
Excuse me, Senator Kaufman.
Commissioner Kaufman,
Commissioner Kaufman.
Isabel, and I'm kind of gonna do a role as your counsel as well.
Okay, so we have 1 representative from each county on the search committee. And also then Sam and Isabel. And I think there are at least 2 or 3 that I think would be fine as our executive director. We will, interview the 4 and we'll then make I believe it's a recommendation
Right,
to.
May 15th. In Miami-Dade County,
Right.
so we're in Miami-Dade on May 15th.
And once we have a recommendation, we will share that. Our meetings, we are a public body, our meetings are public. And should any of the council members wish to attend and watch, you're certainly welcome to. Will this be, I
No.
think it will be taped but not televised.
It will-
sure.
if you,
Yeah.
it's gonna be an in-person meeting. The board members are coming in person. We are going to have a Zoom link because one of the candidates is out of the country. But it's not a Zoom link. In other words, the meeting has been publicly noticed. It is a public meeting, but it's an old style public meeting, which is if you want to come, you need to come.
Right.
So,
Here,
yes.
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 Okay,
Say one's from out of the country?
No, one is
Temporarily
currently
gone.
out of the
Okay.
country traveling, because we held our meetings, we have 1 day of interviews.
It was a big search, but not that big.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Right. So, and are there any questions on that before we move on? If not, action items, we'll ask, for a motion to approve the minutes of the prior meetings.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Ross, seconded by, Commissioner Kaplan, Councilmember Kaplan. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please show the minutes approved. Financial report.
Mr. Leo. Where's Leo?
I will grab them.
I know
Okay,
he
we'll-
doesn't usually from his.
we will move
computer.
on temporarily and move on to the consent agenda while Leo is going. I will ask our attorney to read the proposed consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Geller. For the purpose of record, the consent includes the comprehensive plan reviews, which are amendments with the property rights option provided for by last year's statute in the mix of information. They are as follows: Monroe County 23-01 ACFC, the Town of Cutler Bay 23-01 ESR, City of Fort Lauderdale 23-E1 ESR, the City of Hallandale Beach 23-01 ESR. Next up is the City of Key West 23-01 ACSC. Next up is the City of Key West 23-02 ACSC. The City of Miami 23-01 ESR. Another City of Miami at 23-03 ESR. City of Miami Beach 23-01 ESR. Next up is City of Miami Beach 23-02 ESR. The Miami Shores Village number 23-01 ER. And that would be on the next page would be Miami Shores at 23-02 ER. And last but not least, the City of North Miami at 23-01 ER. These, for the record, are all proposed. They'll come back to the council at some future moment. There are public hearings associated with any, for those who came out to speak for or against the proposals for any one of the
Thank you.
applicants.
Before I open the public meeting, Commissioner.
He's going to.
Okay, public meeting is now open on the proposed consent agenda. Are there any members present wishing to speak in person or telephonically? Or on Zoom or whatever it is? What are we on? Zoom? Okay, on Zoom. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the public hearing? If not, show the public hearing closed. Commissioner Burke.
Yeah, with regard to the Miami Shores Village,
Yes, sir.
both 2301 ER and 02 ER. My understanding is that they just had an election on
They did.
Tuesday,
Mhm.
and everybody who was in favor of doing their comp got voted out.
What's some country?
And that's what that whole, so I
This was
don't,
proposed,
I know,
It'll come back.
but I'm making that point
right.
is that it was a landslide. So, so everybody who wanted, I don't know if this is what they were referring to, but they all got kicked out of office.
Councilmember Burke, you have raised an interesting point. I was going to ask our executive director to comment on that. We're changing a little bit the way that we look at our proposed and adopted public hearings, not public hearings, the comp plan amendments. And I was going to bring that up afterwards, but let me bring that up first, because it would also answer your question.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody who's
So,
representing that area might have a better idea than.
well, so if I could go first.
Yes,
So the bottom line is that, you know, in the past, we used to have our strategic regional policy plan. Well, we still have it, but we were able in our comp plan reviews to refer to the multiple goals in there, more than 20 goals. Now, as a result of changes by the legislature, we are only allowed,
sorry.
that's right. That was a long time ago, and not even this legislature. So, due to changes that
Everything
were
from
made,
local government.
we are no longer allowed to comment for purpose of consistency or whatever. We're not allowed to comment on anything but two things. So the two things are that extra jurisdictional impacts that would be inconsistent with the comp plan of any affected local government. In other words, you're in Hollywood and you're doing something that affects Dania Beach, right? And the other one is
Actually, he
adverse.
represents Hollywood and Hallandale and Dania Beach.
It's just an
that's right.
illustrative
I
example.
know, but I'm just pointing out.
So it's so funny. Adverse effects on regional resources and facilities identified in the SRPP, which is transportation facilities and environmental resources, right? So irrespective of, I'm not saying it's not important, certainly if I'm living in that city, I think it's very important. But we only get to talk about two things, so their comp plan, and then Christina has additional information, I'm sure, on the specifics of those two. But I believe there was an issue about increasing density in the city and they were opposed.
Correct.
That would, in and of itself, would not be something that,
The facilities that they want to put are regional,
Right.
right? Somebody else?
Well, there was an objections, recommendations, the org report issued by the Department of Economic Opportunity. In our recommendations, we recommended that org report be addressed, and it's quite lengthy. The Miami Shores org report from James Stansbury, the chief of the Bureau of Comprehensive Planning of the Department of Economic Opportunity. And he had an org report that was 3 pages long with many of the issues that you're talking about, whether or not it would address the impacts on regional.
all right,
facilities.
so.
So that's our
So
recommendation.
you bring up an important question, and this is just the second part of the question. So I wanted to say, many regional planning councils do not review comp plans. They don't, because it's an unfunded mandate. It's not even an unfunded mandate, it's just not even a mandate anymore. And no, it used to be that we received money from the Department of Community Affairs that would represent about $300,000 a year that was used to pay for the staff that would review comp plans. That all went away, but we have continued to say, let's review the comp plans because it's helpful for us to know what's going on in the region and to be looking out for things, right? So this is what Senator Geller was referring to. Normally you get multiple pages of comp plan that describes what it is.
Right.
It's time intensive to produce that. And so I thought, well, why don't we just sort of cut the baby in half, and staff looks at it and identifies whether it's consistent or inconsistent. Now, I am just saying, this is the first time doing this, but you may decide you want something different. But the idea was that staff does that analysis, and if there's something that she feels that we need to elevate to the board because it violates one of the 2 criteria, that gets pulled out.
Can I do this?
So,
Can I
Councilmember,
make-
for,
I make a-
I just, let me just say that. I just wanted to say on that topic, I was going to have our executive director bring that up
Okay.
afterwards, that we have a new process. So now please proceed.
What I would like to do in this case
Mhm.
is make a motion to continue this one.
Okay,
Give the new commission a chance to weigh in on it. And we'll see what they say. Maybe they don't change it. I think they're gonna change it.
but
But
it won't come back to us. See, at the proposed phase,
I-
right, you know, but you're an
Okay,
elected
yeah,
person.
Right.
But if we continue this, so that we.
Right. I see no downside
I don't
to
think- I don't-
continuing it. So there's a motion to continue. Is there a second?
I'm not
Councilmember
seconding
Ross.
it. I have a question on it. If there's, what's the upside? And if we're going to continue it, I'm told it's not coming back to us, then what are we continuing?
Why wouldn't it come back?
Well,
It'll come
because
back.
Remember, we only have 30 days to comment,
In
and
other
if we
words,
don't comment
this
in
is the
30
proposed
days,
phase.
it's approved.
So this is the proposed phase, and it's just part of the process.
Right,
It's in proposed and it goes forward. It
right.
doesn't really matter if we comment or
If
don't comment.
we
It's
can
gonna
approve it
continue
or
going.
disapprove it, disapprove it, and it still moves on to the next phrase. Right now, we can only make comments and recommendations.
So Christina,
So, and if we don't make any comments or recommendations within 30 days, we can't.
And my comment would be
Right,
that, it would be worthwhile for the new commission to weigh in on this.
and they will, because it'll come back to them
Yeah, remember, it
for
goes back.
adoption. It goes back to them for
After it goes
adoption,
through the
which at that
process,
point,
it
I
goes back
imagine
to
they'll
them
go
for final
no.
approval. We do the same thing at the county level,
Okay,
but,
no.
but I have, if you want us to,
A little asterisk.
I see
yeah,
Christina.
I have no problem with, yes, Christina. And then I'm gonna call on our attorney to tell
I
us
have
what we
one
can or
question.
can't do.
See, and I think this is where we might need to modify the process that I thought was, they may be too simplified at this point. My thought on these was that there was no controversy about them. But if DEO presented a 5-page org report, then for me, that signifies some level of controversy and should not be here. It should be on a regular agenda. So let's do that moving forward. My
Yeah.
question now is there anything in the org report
That deals
that
with the
would fall within
two
the
issues.
2 issues that we reviewed?
Well, there's insufficient information for us to determine whether or not there's an impact to regional facilities, but the org report would have to be addressed in order for us to determine if.
Then we
there's
shouldn't be on a
facilities.
consent agenda. If there's not enough
But-
information, I wouldn't have it on a consent agenda.
However,
However, the way it's presented by the city currently is that there's no impacts. So I think that what our
Yeah.
note in there is that the org report needs to be addressed because they need to do better analysis of their density and land use.
Objection.
an orc is an evil creature in Lord of the Rings.
I just saw Dungeons and Dragons, all right? What does it
I have
mean?
no idea.
Yeah, what does work stand for?
Pretty answer what it worked for us.
It's an
Objection.
objection, recommendations, and comments report of the
Okay.
Department of Economic Opportunity, and it can be used as the basis for legal action
Okay.
by someone who's.
Not to be
Thank you.
confused with org.
At this point in time, I'd like to call on our council attorney and ask him, to what extent do we have, my understanding is that we have been largely hamstrung by the state, that we have 30 days to
Comment,
comment,
correct.
and our comments are supposed to be limited to the 2 areas that Isabel had referenced.
Right.
And that the issue raised by Councilmember Furr, while completely correct, is something that the legislature has taken away our ability to comment on. But I certainly have no problem with postponing it, which just means that
We won't.
we
comment.
will offer no comment at all, as opposed to saying we've approved it. I have no problem with going along with Councilmember Furr and
Take
not
it a step
comment.
further. If you don't comment,
It's deemed approved.
30 days it's deemed approved.
Correct.
Right, but there's a difference between being deemed approved and our saying it's approved.
Or we can just say
Well, no, wait, one at a time, Councilmember Kaplan,
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
Councilmember
of
Furr, then our executive director. Councilmember Kaplan, you're recognized, sir.
Listening to all of this, I draw maybe the right conclusion. It seems to me might be to comment that there's insufficient information to reach a decision on the 2 criteria as noted in the York report.
I'd make a motion.
I agree.
That's perfect.
And for the record, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we've done that
We've
before.
done this before. You have a history where you have this internal conflict, which is not a bad conflict, it's policy driven, to be able to preserve your legal rights. The statute does speak about what your rights are. And even though, as Isabel mentioned, and as our chair mentioned, it's an unfunded mandate, you still have obligations under the statute. I mean, I didn't make it up, it's in chapter 163. It does reference regional planning councils. It's 163, 3184, and it's right in front of your face. So the end result is to do nothing means nothing happens. If you do comment, you preserve your legal rights, number one.
Yeah, we
And
have to-
and you'll also allow yourselves to the opportunity to look at what happens at the next stage, which is the adopted.
Okay, I would recommend that instead of postponing this, that we go along with, I believe this would accomplish Councilmember Furr's, one second, Councilmember Furr's concern if we went along with Councilmember Kaplan's comment that there's insufficient information. Councilmember Goldberg, you're recognized.
Is it, I guess, his initial question that kind of got my thought was, if the representative officials have been voted out and the new ones that are in
Mhm.
have a different position potentially, does it make us not appear to be supportive
Mhm.
if we don't say, hey, wait a minute, we shouldn't even be involved?
We don't have the jurisdiction to comment on that. Our jurisdiction is limited to those 2 areas. It apparently, we lack sufficient information to know whether or not we, because the ORC report, those evil creatures did not have sufficient information about that we can base our recommendation on. So I believe that Councilmember Kaplan moves, seconded by Commissioner Burr, unless Commissioner Burr would like to make the motion,
No, it's
seconded by Commissioner Kaplan. Commissioner Kaplan, Councilmember Kaplan moves that we, on the two Miami Shores Village ones, we pull those out and designate those as we lack sufficient information to provide any comment. Is there a seconded by Councilmember Burr? Is there any discussion? Is there any objection?
I have a piece of discussion.
Yes,
Um,
Councilmember Bernardino.
we were going to approve that before now, but we still had those same comments. There was insufficient.
It's still, our lack of, our saying we have no comment will basically have no effect. It will still go through, but it will show that we didn't approve it in deference to the new council members of the
What I'm
village of
suggesting
Miami
is, shouldn't
Shores.
we have not approved that?
We're not approving it, we're transmitting comments.
Okay, we're just transmitting, we're not recommending.
We,
approve.
right, we don't, we lack the authority to approve or disapprove.
Okay, so
it.
it's simply
All we
transmitting.
can do is comment.
Okay, got
And
it.
so we are, right,
Right,
we
okay.
are, our comment is, we lack sufficient information to comment.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, is there, yes,
Yes.
Councilmember, not Councilmember, I'm sorry, Executive Director Gocio, you're
Remember
right.
that.
Yes,
So we'll talk about this, how we make it, because see, even though you already knew in your mind that we were gonna send it along with a comment that there was not sufficient information, it's not reflected in the agenda
It is,
item.
it isn't.
No, there's only a list of things here.
No,
Christina.
it's.
it's in the backup.
It's in the backup.
What backup?
The agenda item, where is it?
I have the agenda item right here.
Yeah.
Where is
The agenda
it?
item?
While she's looking for that, I would want to point out the other thing that we
Yeah,
changed.
here it is. The comment was under Miami Shores Village was council recommends addressing the DO or report.
I don't have that.
It's not on the,
It's just, it's.
it's in the backup,
Anyway.
right,
I see it.
financial report.
I just have that.
It is, it's page 2.
My page 2 is,
It just says
Oh, I see. I
resubmittal,
see.
council recommends.
I'm sorry,
addressing the
Christina, I see
DDO.
it here.
And-
All
But
right.
now we're actually adding more to it by saying we had insufficient information.
Okay, we'll figure out a way to present the information so it's more clear.
All right.
The other thing I wanted to mention very
We
quickly.
really need to be moving on.
Normally, what we were saying before was that we were finding the thing, the amendment consistent with SRPP. We are no longer saying that because there's only two things we work on. And so my goal moving to the future is to comment on the two things we're allowed, but also aside, comment on the things that are in the SRPP for us.
Call the
Right.
vote.
So.
Yes,
so we will clarify
motion
that.
by Councilmember Ross. Call the vote, all those in favor of the motion by Commissioner Kaplan, which is
Your roll call, Mr. Chair.
seconded by Commissioner Burr. Please call the roll.
Thank you.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Gordino,
Yes.
Burr,
Yes.
Garcia here? No, okay. Goldberg,
Yes.
Orland,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Yes.
Diggy,
Yes.
Judy,
Mike, you're on mute.
Yes.
Hoffman's a yes. I didn't hear my name called.
Okay.
Miller,
Yes, show that motion adopted. We are now back on the remainder of the consent agenda. The public hearing has been closed. All those in favor, do we need a roll call?
You read the-
Please call the roll on the remainder of the consent agenda proposed.
you propose. Thank you.
Why don't we start with the document?
Kaplan,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Gordino,
Yes.
Burr,
Yes.
Goldberg,
Yes.
Orland,
Yes.
Kaufman,
Yes.
Lincoln, yes. Ross,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
Yes. Show the remainder of the proposed consent agenda adopted. Council Attorney, could you please read the adopted consent agenda?
First up is the Broward County 22-05 ESR. Second, which is the Broward County 22-06 ESR. Next up, Miami-Dade County 21-05 ESR. Miami-Dade County 22-01 ER. Miami-Dade County 22-06 ESR. Next up, City of Hollywood, number 21-02 ESR. Colorado Islands 22-02 ACSC. Village 22-03 ACSC. City of Key West 22-04 ACSC. Next up, City of Key West 22-05 ACSC. City of Lighthouse Point 22-01 ES1. Next up, City of Miami 22-01 ES1. Next up, Miami Shore Village 22-811. Next up, the Village 22-01 ER. City of North Miami 22-02 ESR. City of North Miami 22-03 ESR. Pinecrest 22-01 ESR. City of St. Al's Beach 22-02 ER. And East, the City of St. Al's Beach 22-03 ESR. Last will be adopted.
Thank you. Public hearing is now open on the adopted comprehensive plan amendment reviews. Is there any member present in person or attending via Zoom that wishes to comment? Is there any person present in person or via Zoom that wishes to comment? If not, show the public hearing closed. Commissioner Furr, does your same issue that you raised on Miami Shores Village extend to the adopted one here? I see somebody shaking head no. Okay, all right. In that case, is there a motion to approve the adopted comprehensive plan amendment reviews?
So
Moved by Councilmember Roth, seconded by Councilmember Lincoln. Please call the roll.
Kaplan. Guardino.
Yes.
Yes.
Marlin.
Yes.
Kaufman's a yes if you're calling Kaufman.
Yes.
Okay.
Lincoln, yes. Ross,
Yes.
Udine,
Yes.
and Geller.
Yes. By your vote, show the adopted comprehensive plan amendment reviews as adopted. We will now move into the regional issues for comprehensive plan amendment review. As Ms. Cosio Carvalho has already indicated. Yes. I'm sorry.
Financial report.
Financial report.
We deferred, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, right. Okay. Yeah, all right, Leah will be back to you momentarily. As on item D, just to say, as our executive director has said, we will bring back a at our, hopefully our next full meeting, a different way of dealing with our comprehensive plan amendment reviews, clarifying what we can and can't really comment on, and saying that we've limited our comments or official comments to the things that we can comment on, but may have additional commentary, which we would know are outside of the issues, but that will be at our next meeting. So I don't want to get into that at all now. Our financial report, I see Leo there. Leo, you're up, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great Monday. So our financial report on page 1, if we look at the general fund, we closed the second quarter of fiscal year 22-23 at $2,008,156 in assets, as well as liabilities and fund balance for the general fund. If we look into the federal, state, and local funds, we closed them with $175,337 in assets, as well as liabilities and fund balance. The revolving loan funds closed in $12,071,536, as well as liabilities and fund balance. And the Southeast Florida Regional Prosperity Institute did not experience any moves. If we go to the second page, and again, reminding everyone that we just closed the second quarter of the fiscal year. Of course, we're at 50% of the fiscal year lapsed. you will see that our collections are at 65% of the year, so we are ahead. And our expenses are at 40% of our annual budget, that is $3.4 million.
Thank you. Does that conclude your report, sir?
That concludes my report. Thank you very much.
I have one question and then I'll open it to everyone else. I just want to verify that, which is good because we're 40%, that we do have money in the budget for both our normal expense plus the deputy director expense for the remainder of the year. It's my understanding we had previously budgeted for that.
We have previously budgeted for that when we prepared the annual budget with Isabel, and that budget got approved by the board. So we do have funding to hire the deputy director, sir.
Just want, I thought so, just want to verify. Are there any additional questions on the financial report? Are there any additional questions? Going, gone. Councilmember Udine, in the future, you're the one that I look to review these based on your banking background, so.
I'll make a motion to accept or approve if we need a motion.
Okay, Councilmember Udine moves to accept the financial report. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. We do this by voice vote? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please show the financial is adopted. We are now on item E, 4E, RLF borrower defaults. And I will ask our council attorney to race through these.
In the backup, Mr. Chair and members of the council, there are two defendants, prospective defendants, PHI Technologies and J. Stevens Construction, that owe the council some money based upon their default and their revolving loans. Mr. Tart has actually calculated the deficiency. They're not insizable, they're large dollars between the both. To the extent that the RLF board has recommended that each be foreclosed and be pursued through a complaint process in the court system. We would seek your confirmation of their recommendation, which is to allow us to file suit in the name of the council against PHI and also against J. Stevens.
Let me ask you a question on that. Are either or both defendants considered collectible?
The best answer is that we won't know till we get into the process. We believe that they may be. We will not waste the client's money to find out the answer if we preliminarily can find that they don't have any assets. And Jeff can better answer as to what the security has been in the recent past.
Right, and in returns to, yeah, thank you. In regards to PHI Technologies, really the significant amount of money that was lost was a result of the company experiencing COVID impact, but really a significant issue with them was with a fraud incident between them and their main client. The fraud incident was reported to the FBI. So we did discuss this with Lauren Shoroff, and we wanted to move forward to put a claim in, a complaint, in case there's some sort of reclaim with the funds with the FBI and the client.
Okay.
So, and in regards to J. Stevens, just very quickly, this was a client that was in very good standing, had strong financials. We were quite surprised that the company was bringing all its assets to liquidation to pay back all its creditors, us being the number one. So we are expecting a significant amount of those assets to come back to us.
Are there any questions on either of these? If not, is there a motion to approve authorizing litigation to be brought by our law firm with on behalf of the SFRPC?
So moved as to PHI Technology.
Okay, moved by Council Member Ross on behalf of PHI Technologies.
Right.
Is there a second on PHI Technologies? Seconded by Council Member Kaplan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, show the motion adopted as to PHI Technologies. Council Member Ross, you appear to have a question on J. Stevens Construction.
And I do, I guess it's to Sam, based on the paperwork that has been filed for the loan, is it necessary, because I'm hearing Jeff tell us we're going to essentially get paid through the insolvency process or the liquidation process. Do we need to file suit?
To the extent that we have reviewed the matter, the answer is yes, preliminarily, and we just need your authority to do so.
then I move to do so.
Mayor Ross moves to file, or to approve our law firm to file suit against J. Stevens Construction on behalf of the SFRPC. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Please show that adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We are currently on item F, the 2023, 2022, 23, and 23, 24 selected programs and projects update. I'm going to briefly comment here. All of you have been around, well, most of you have been around long enough to have heard me complain that there was no reason for the SFRPC to continue any longer unless we were going to actually do regional planning. I'm very pleased that over the past several years, under the leadership of our beloved but soon to depart executive director, that we really have been making a name for ourselves, and people are really recognizing us as a major regional convening authority. So I will ask Ms. Cosio, will we be doing this, or is there somebody
Yes,
who wants
and
to
actually,
designate?
we're gonna have this in a minute. I'll just give a quick
Okay,
little overview.
Ms.
So-
Cosio will give us then the brief
Thank you,
overview. and
Chair.
run
So
through
if
it.
you look at agenda item 4F, members, and some of those who are veterans of the council will remember seeing a similar document back when you were there, Councilmember Kaplan, where we went and tried to just highlight the main program activities of the council and also the funding source, so you could understand how things come together. This is new and improved is because, as Senator Diller says, that even though we always do regional planning, it wasn't always visible to everyone. So with Chair Diller's leadership and the support of the council, we've been more overt in putting together events and all that sort of thing. So on page 3, what you'll see are the regional convenings that we've completed so far, and I included the November 2021 because it was right after 2022, and it was a joint meeting. And the joint meetings change depending on when the session starts. So when they're in March, we had our joint meeting in February. When it's in January, you might have a joint meeting in November. So that, and that's what that is. Then we have upcoming our activities that we are working on now. So we have our solid waste management collaboration follow-up is coming up. I'm working right now with Miami-Dade and Broward counties. We have a call on Friday to do a next steps. We had started this conversation at the direction of Senator Garcia and the Board of County Commissioners to pass a resolution looking to advance the solid waste management conversation. I know there've been some.
I
new
was about to say,
developments.
before we move on that, we happen to have the two leaders in
Experts,
Broward
two
here.
experts here.
Councilmember Fur, Councilmember Ross. My understanding is that the Broward League of Cities either has or is about to vote on a proposal to send to the county.
We
Have you-
actually,
you've already done
have
that, right?
sent it to the county and to the cities, and we'll back the results.
The county will be voting on it on May 2nd. And numerous cities have already got it on their agenda. And our deadline is to have it done by June 1st.
And at that point in time, it will be much easier for us to be proceeding with Dade and Palm Beach once we know where we are. But again, there is a phone call already scheduled. Ms. Gosia has been working primarily, my understanding is with the solid waste directors, well, in Dade and actually in Broward.
Mike Fernandez.
It's Mike Fernandez, and in Broward, it's with,
Isn't it Mike Fernandez?
no,
Wasn't Mike's last name?
In Broward,
Yeah.
Ruiz.
Mike
Because
Ruiz.
Mike
Right.
Fernandez is director, so,
Right.
no,
And
so
they've been.
Mike Ruiz, we've been
Right.
working together, he's a great resource, also known as El Duque
Yeah.
in Miami-Dade,
Yeah,
so.
and everybody will remember
Yeah.
For the Marlins.
the great
Right.
feedback we received on our
Very
solid
excited.
waste joint meeting with the TCRPC and Commissioner Burr. Again, you took the lead in a lot of that, so thank you.
So just really, so you'll see here, we have a number of upcoming events coming up, and we'll discuss
Which we'll be
that more.
discussing in a
further.
couple, right?
And then,
And
then
we
it
will be
goes
done
into
by June, so
2024.
we're going to be running.
so I'm gonna
through it.
ask
Right.
staff, who's been kind enough to put together a quick little presentation, which you see on the board, just to very quickly go over our program areas and show you where they're funded. This will be important to our conversation a little
Right.
bit longer.
And we'll do this in 5 to 7 minutes.
Right. And you can have greater detail just by reading. the
Because at
agenda
7
item.
minutes, bang. Proceed.
Perfect. Perfect for me.
I'm getting
Thank you.
stressed.
Want to be done by noon. I run meetings on time.
I
Please
know you
proceed.
do.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what Isabel just described, these are our regional convenings that we anticipate for 2023 to 2024.
These are at least, right?
Pardon?
These are at least, yes.
Yes, it's anticipated there'll be 3 large meetings, 1 joint regional planning conference with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to the north. 1 joint regional planning council meeting with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, which we hold regularly, and 1 South Florida Regional Planning Conference, similar to the one we had recently, but with the first last mile conference, where we pick an important topic to the council and to the board, and do a regional convening on that. We also anticipate 1 to 2 smaller meetings, 1 SEDS related meeting. The other ones might be SEDS related as well, but specifically to promote SEDS goals and objectives. And 1 other small meeting to continue our program focus area. To build collaboration in 1 of our program focus areas. One of the main goals that we would like to pursue is an update to the South Florida Regional Planning Council Strategic Regional Policy Plan. It was last updated and adopted in 2004, and if you saw a copy, you would know, because the font looks really outdated. And it really needs to be
Excuse me 1
updated.
second. Councilmember Fur. Yeah, I just had a pen explode. Can you please chair until I return?
Emergency.
Yeah. Also, we'll discuss later.
So the regional policy plan serves as a foundation for our policy decisions here. The way we review comprehensive plans is based on what's in the strategic regional policy plan. And the ways it needs to be updated include incorporating and folding in the Southeast Florida Climate Change Compact policy that was adopted for the region. We need to address resiliency at the level that it deserves in this day and age, where maybe it wasn't such a focus area in 2004. Another thing that needs to be updated is the natural resources and regional significance map. It's actually in statute, in our current statute, related to regional planning councils. We're supposed to review comprehensive plans based on whether or not they affect regional resources of regional significance. So this map will provide us with something concrete to measure against. And we could reflect the current status of the Everglades restoration projects, the Biscayne Bay restoration projects, the BBC, which are constantly evolving, but at least to fold them in as in their current
And
status.
agriculture too.
And agriculture is an evolving topic that needs a higher focus in our strategic regional policy plan. And affordable housing, it's become a higher focus area of higher importance than perhaps it was even in 2004. So it's been an issue, but it's reached a crisis point.
Councilmember Lincoln?
Thank you. To that point, now that Senate Bill 102 was just passed, I really think that this is a great opportunity for us to bring this to the foreplate of what we're going to be discussing in the next year, because it's going to make major differences for all of us.
102 is.
The
big
housing
affordable
crisis,
housing.
yes.
Okay.
Zoning.
The zoning, which will increase density.
Right.
So I think that that would be something that would be really good for us to bring that bill to this group and explore it more.
That's an excellent
That
point.
is a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a note. We can have a presentation on that.
And to reflect statewide legislation like Senate Bill 102 and also parallel flag legislation that happened after 2004. So that needs to be referenced in our current SOPP.
And with a look to the evacuation. On that.
Yeah, that's something that needs additional focus as well, the emergency evacuation. We've begun policy review. Our staff has started looking through the SOPP and found a real need to address resiliency throughout the document because it wasn't sufficiently addressed, and we'll be looking through it for other issues as well. It would take at least 6 to 12 months, I think, to do an update, depending on how much outreach we did. We would have to have a working group of all the county members to reflect the issues for our individual counties as well. So thank you. Next slide. The next 3 slides are funding by program area to show you where the money goes. This is the area that is primarily paid for by council dues from the counties. Our regional convenings are primarily paid for by council dues. The strategic regional policy plan will need to be funded through council dues when we start the update process. coordination and collaboration activities. We attend a lot of technical committees. I sit on the long range transportation steering committee for Miami County Transportation Planning Organization, for example, and Isabel sits on a number of committees. So it pays for all those council, all that time for us through the council dues. We do our local government comprehensive plan amendment review process, which is currently getting streamlined, and we expect that streamlining process in the coming months. And also any kind of technical assistance where that we provide, our intergovernmental coordination and reviews are all done through our technical assistance program. A lot of agencies come to us when they're applying for grants, for example, and they're asking for letters, they're asking for review, they're asking for comments. All that time is from council dues. And then we also get funding from outside agencies, both federal and state and county agencies to support and supplement the work we already do. One of our biggest areas, there's really 3 slides here. This is one of our biggest areas is economic development and RLF, for rolling loan funds. Economic development, and we get about 70,000 a year from the Economic Development Administration, so that's definitely supplemented by council dues substantially. And then the RLF is a very strong area for us financially.
And you're gonna need to pick up the pace.
Yeah, interest of about 270,000. Next slide. Our strongest in terms of financial income is actually environmental mobility. Alicia has helped us with the Clean Cities program. It's been very successful this year. So it's currently being funded by the Department of Energy and a variety of other agencies in the transportation and resilience environment sphere. This is about 423,000. That's a very strong area for us. Next slide. And then emergency preparedness managed by Charlene, our new planner. We're very happy to have her on board, and this area is about 200,000 with support from Jenny Sullivan. So that's it. Just wanted to give you a
Good job.
I wrote that.
Okay, are there any questions? And we'll be getting back to this when we reach our discussion on dues, which we thought that this was an important issue for. We'll also be getting, that we will be returning to this under actually when we reach G, and again when we reach I, current and future. So are there any questions on this now? If not, we will use this, keep this in front of you to segue into our next item. And I don't mean right on the standard things, to our dues. At our prior non-existent meeting, and I say it was a non-existent meeting because we did not even have enough, it was supposed to be an executive committee meeting, and we didn't have enough membership for the executive committee. So it was, 3 people hanging around chatting in a informal discussion. In the public forum. In the public, because it was a noticed meeting about raising our dues. Currently, there were 3 items in front of us, and our current base is currently lower than, I believe, any other RPC in the state. I think Emerald Coast, wherever that is the one we weren't sure about because they do it weirdly. Right. But on those that do it per capita, we are lower than any other county, as you can see. We had voted, we were at 17.5 cents, and we had been at 17.5 cents per member per capita for 28 years. And because we didn't raise it during the 28 years, we fell badly behind. We had voted to increase it from 17.5 to 20, and then follow a 4-year glide path of raising it 0.125. So at the end of 4 years, we would be at 25 cents. The problem with that is other RPCs have also been raising theirs. The raising to 25 cents would still leave us as way the lowest. And if we are going to do the kind of regional convenings that we have recently been working on, that you saw in the other presentation that you received, we determined that we really need to raise it more than that amount. So there were 3 suggestions in front of us at the last meeting. One was to leave it the way it was. One was to, instead of raising it by 0.25 to raise it by 2 cents per year for the next 4 years, which would take us to 28 cents instead of 25 cents. At the end of 4 years, which, as you see, is still lower than anyone else. Or the third option was to raise it by 2.5 cents per year, which would have taken us to 30 cents at the end of an additional 4 years, which, as you see, would still have us tied for lowest if the others don't raise their dues, which we are assuming that some of them will. And candidly, I think we're doing more here at the SFRPC than any of the others are doing. The recommendation that from staff was to raise it by 2.5 cents a year, which would take us to 30 cents in 4 years. And you have that spreadsheet in front of you. The positions that staff has recommended that we need are a deputy director / program manager, a senior economic development / data and research manager, which could be a assistant director, which would be one rank below the deputy director, a senior resilience planner, and I don't think we need to say how important resilience is to the SFRPC, and a senior administrative support, which we're not talking about a secretary, we're talking about someone to do those. Those are the positions that have been recommended by staff. We don't know that even if we go to the 2.5 cents, that we can afford all 4 of those. But these are the 4 that staff has recommended. At our non-meeting meeting, 3 people hanging around and chatting, we did what most government entities will do, which is recommending splitting the baby. But that was not a formal recommendation. When I say splitting the baby, that was increasing, instead of staying where we are on our glide path, which would take us to 25 cents, or increasing by 2.5 cents, which was the highest we had, which would take us in 4 more years to 30 cents. The middle option was over 4 years would take us to 28 cents. And that was the informal recommendation. Staff is still requesting that we go with the higher increase. Can you put back up the numbers? This is the fiscal impact.
And it's broken up by year.
Right,
So you can see
and
the
so
per year.
in Broward, I'm sure the difference between the 0.125 and the alternative scenario 2, which is what staff is recommending, is approximately
Yeah,
100,000 per year. At the conclusion of the 4-year period, it would take us to another 100,000 a year. I'm sure Broward can find 100,000
in 4 years.
in
because-
4 years. Council member Lincoln did raise some concern about the $5,000 increase because their budget is much smaller, from 20 to 25 at the end of 4 years. Senator Garcia, the problem is I don't think we have anybody here from Dade right now. Or I should say from the Dade County Commission, which would be paying. Their budget is substantially larger than Broward's. And by the way, Broward's is state size. We're about $7 billion budget. I think Dade is well over 10. I think they're about 12. So that the increase, if we went to Dade from the difference from the 0.125, which would be roughly 700,000, would take them to roughly 835. So it would be a difference of about 130,000 for Dade at the conclusion of 4 years. So we need to take a vote today. I will ask Ms. Cosio Carballo to briefly make the case for why we need the 0.25,
Right.
which would take us to 30 cents at 4 years, which again would still be would be the lowest or tied for lowest if the others don't increase. And then after that, I will ask for debate from the council members, and then we will vote between staying at the 0.125 increase that we've already adopted, going to 2 cents, or going to at 0.2 cents, or going to 0.25 cents. Isabel, you recognize me.
So thank you, council members. In the agenda item, you'll have an overview of what the council was in terms of staffing and capacity dating back to 2003. I came to work at the council in 96. Anyway, in 2003, there were 25 full-time positions. To give you an example, the director of administration used to have 4 people working London, and Kathy has no one right now. So it puts a big burden. Right now, we're at 12 full-time positions. And you can see the breakdown on the backup. As Chair Geller mentioned, we are missing a couple of key positions. And that's really, for me, is the primary issue, is the capacity issue. And also the council dues, in addition to paying for staff and capacity, also is part of the resources we can use for matching funds to leverage money into the region. So when you look at the chart, I know it sounds like a lot, but I'm not trying to diminish how important these resources are. They're taxpayer dollars and they're important. You have to be frugal with them, I guess. But you have to be responsible with them. But if you look at the difference, every penny creates about $50,000. So any staff position, even let's say a $65,000 staff position, which isn't a lot, you got to put a third on that to cover the position. Okay, so because that's just what they have, but then there's an extra third. So with the 2.5 cents, it would make a difference for us, but it's not like it would be a giant windfall. If you look at the difference between, for example, what Broward is paying, and these population numbers again are April 1st numbers, because that's the best we have. But if you look at the difference is like 20,000 the first year, 25,000. For Monroe County, the difference between what they're scheduled for this year and what this would be is like $1,020 is the difference for Monroe. So again, I asked you to please consider this. We do need to fill these positions. I need to hire someone that can start training and working with Kathy, because we're gonna need a future director of administration. And you can't have a director of administration if she has no one to direct. Okay, so.
I will add, you may not get any of those positions, even if we increase this. If you have been following the FRS bill as it works its way through the legislature, all of the increase could well end up going into the
Oh my God,
retirement
yes.
benefits.
Yes, it's incredible.
Yeah, so discussion.
So the point,
Councilmember Ross.
So I see the missing position, but I don't see numbers associated with the missing positions. I need to justify increasing based on what it's gonna cost, but I don't know the cost.
Okay, the deputy director, we are hiring one now.
it's 140.
It's 140,000 salary, but when you add in benefits, figure a third is a rule of thumb. That's, let's say 190.
Just
That by itself will take 4 cents. So, well, I've said, even if we go to the 2.5 cents, I don't think it's realistic that it's not realistic that we can hire these 4 positions. If we go to the 4 cents over 5 years, if we go to 2.25 cents per year over 4 years, which would take us up to 30 cents in over a 4-year period, that would take us to an additional 10 cents. We might be able to hire most of these positions, but bear in mind, inflation will, and the FRS change, so. Isabel, can you give us a ballpark on what you think these, I know the deputy director figure 190.
I would think that, and Leo, could you pull up the chart on the leverage that we bring in with the dues? Because I think the dues are about 30% of our budget. So that means that the other 70% is from money that's leveraged. I would say that a person to come in for work with Kathy, for example, which is very important, probably is gonna cost anywhere between 63 and 65 if they have some experience.
Figure 65,
And then
figure
another
90,000.
Another third,
with
yes,
benefits,
yeah, that's
right.
gonna be a 90,000. I would tell you that a person that's good with data and economic development is probably, I don't know, it could be an $80,000 position or a $75,000 position. It could be
Figure
more.
100.
There's a range there. And what it does remind me is that the resources are going to continue to be a challenge. And they say the other position that we had in there was, let me see if I have it. I'm sorry, which one? And the resilience planner, that's, my resilience planner that I had, you guys might remember Bridget Houston. Bridget Houston graduated with her master's and 2 days later, she had a $90,000 job.
Figure,
with a
and that was a number of
consultant
years ago, figure minimum 100, so
So,
that
I
takes
mean,
it to 130.
If I had to prioritize, I would say the deputy director, obviously, that's coming in, and that's budgeted for, we have that. If I had to prioritize, I would have to be the economic development person and the senior administrators. I mean, they're all important.
Okay,
To your point.
okay, go ahead,
Sorry.
Councilmember Lincoln, you recognize
Sorry
me.
about that.
No, not at all.
In parentheses,
time
you
for
have, this
debate.
could be the deputy, position, so.
No, it
Yeah.
said deputy,
Okay,
so that's why I just changed it to assistant director as opposed to deputy
but the
director.
deputy director
Right.
position is
So-
eventually gonna
That's
roll
what it-
into your position.
So, well,
Yes, but then they still want, Isabel believes she needs a deputy
So,
now, even if she were not retiring.
so we're gonna have, I will tell you that one of the challenges I've had is that I have not had a deputy since being retired. It makes it very, very difficult to do my job, my unique job, very difficult.
Got
us
all fooled then.
Oh, thank you, you're very kind. So, but my point is, I would think that the new director is going to want a deputy director.
Okay.
But what we always try to do when we bring in a position like that is make sure they have technical skills in another, thank you again, in another program area. So my recommendation would be anyone that, just like Manny used to run the LEPC program, he ran that program and brought revenue into that program. I don't think a deputy director just gets to come in and say, hey, I'm deputy director. No, they also need to be producing on the income side of the house.
Please put the other side back up. Please
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, they need to be able
Yeah,
to.
the numbers, yes.
They need to be
Okay, please
able
continue.
to produce as well, so the deputy director would probably need to be in a
No,
program
the one
area.
you just
I
had.
suggest it would be economic development, because that's one of our primary funded programs with EDA and where we have the most opportunity to really help local governments.
Okay, Ms. Cosio, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you anticipate if we have more money, are we able to use that to leverage additional? Right now, it's only 30% dues, 29%.
Right,
And we're getting a lot of money, but I'm not sure if we have more dues money, if we'll still be able to keep the 30/70 or what, I mean, to what extent will additional dues revenue enable us to leverage additional other revenue?
I think, yeah, it's not an easy question, and it's true, it's a very tight budget. I think you would just sort of have to make decisions as opportunities present. You know, if I have an opportunity to bring in, I don't know, you have to make hard decisions. Maybe you can't have all three people at one time, or maybe you have to put more into an EDA contract, for example. We're having a conversation now with Monroe County to talk about alternative transportation modes. That might be a subject of a grant, it might be matched, maybe there's a way to do both. So, you know, it's hard to tell.
Based on my conversations, I would recommend that we go with the 0.025, but I'm saying that for the purpose of starting discussion. At this point in time, I'm gonna ask if there is any additional discussion. If there is no additional discussion, Councilmember Fur, did you have a motion?
I'm just gonna make a motion to do that.
Go ahead. What is your motion, sir?
That's what you said.
Okay, Councilmember Fur moves
0.25.
to recommend an increase of 0.025 over 4 years, so that in an additional 4 years, we would be at the 30 cents or point. Hold on, can I see?
Yes.
I don't want to see that other chart.
Leo's sharing his screen and I'm trying to get him to stop.
Leo, stop sharing your screen.
So what is
Okay, so, so the suggestion would be, the motion is to increase by 0.025, which would take us, if you look at this sheet, to the 0.30 per capita.
So the difference
30
between what's
cents,
already
right.
approved and the 2.5, the 0.25, the difference is an additional 1.25 pennies per year.
Right,
If it's already approved 1.25.
Right.
The idea is to add an additional 1.25.
Yeah, so the idea is to add 100%, is what you're saying. We agreed.
Wait, Councilmember Roth.
I'm sorry.
Let me just find out if there's a second first. Is there a second to Councilmember Fur's? Okay, seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Discussion, Councilmember Ross, you're
Thank
recognized.
you. We agreed back when, and it was just a few years ago, that it was going to be 0.125. Now I'm hearing a motion made, let's double it. Let's do 100% increase from what we had requested. And what I'm not seeing, once again, not only the numbers, which we verbally went over for the cost, what I'm also not seeing is the increase in revenues like we did with the military, with the economic development. I don't see any of that. So where is that coming in to reduce the doubling of what we're suggesting?
Well, let him finish.
No, I'm done. Thank
Okay,
you.
No, I was
Ms.
just
Roth,
gonna
please.
say, I mean, part of the, okay, so where we started with this also was the fact about the regional convenings. That is causing big increase in expenses to the council. All those regional convenings, rental spaces, food. I think we could maybe start charging a little bit now, which we weren't doing before because we were sort of fresh out of the gate, right? So we had proved ourselves that we can have meaningful regional convenings and we could charge into that. But with the work schedule that is proposed and the regional convenings that are proposed in-person meetings, there's a significant expense to that. So, and I don't, again, the fair needs to be somewhere soon. So this is an abbreviated thing. We could also have another meeting if you like, to go more in depth. I don't mind scheduling that. The reason we're having this conversation now, normally the Deuce conversation comes to you in July. The reason is now is that if there's anything to be done to get in budgets, it has to happen now, right, before July. So, yes, we have, part of the executive director's report will be there. We met with DOD. We had, the Department of Defense here in our office 2 weeks ago. We're talking about follow-up work to do with the Department of Defense on implementation and resilience review. So that would be one example. We just haven't gotten to that part. We're also working to create a tech hub application that for the EDA, there's a significant amount of money for tech hubs, and we're trying to create a South Florida regional tech hub. Again, council, that's a combination of council resources, reduced, married with EDA funding to help support that regional collaboration, putting together that regional effort.
And I appreciate that. I've never known, if that all comes true, then what we should do is reduce the amount if this so passes the way it is, but we won't. We never have, and I've never seen anything go back.
Chair Geller, if I may, this is Leo.
okay, Leo, we'll add you to the list right now. I have Councilmember Fur and then Councilmember Lincoln in the queue, and then I will call on you.
If I may continue, so without that, I think we are premature in raising it 100%. We can always raise it next year, the year after, but I think conservatively, let's see what income we get.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Ross. Councilmember Fur.
I'll just be real quick. I think there's a number of issues that are on the table right now, the demand capacity. between transportation, which we did have a committee, between solid waste and with resilience. Those three things are all front and center for this region on a very timely basis. All those things are coming up quick. You know, and I know on the solid waste. The transportation, I know, being the representative from Broward on Septec, that combining of Miami-Dade and with Brightline and the whole commuter link is on the top burner right now. And that's gonna require a lot of regionalization of this group. Resilience on the thing, we just, with this rain, what we just saw, those kind of things having to do with the, this group is gonna be front and center with the Army Corps of Engineers and with the South Florida Water Management District, and trying to get money to build those pumps and keep us all from flooding. Those three issues all by themselves require a capacity that we don't have. And I think all of us need to recognize these are not one county at a time. These are regional issues. And it is a drop in the bucket.
Resilience.
Well, yeah, I know. Given required. So that's, I wasn't ready to go there.
In the interest of time, I want to see everybody else that wishes to speak. Right now, I've got Councilmember Lincoln. We have Leo. I'm going to close. I'll take Councilmember Kaplan. Anybody else? You don't raise your hand now, you're not speaking. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Call first on Councilmember Lincoln, then I'm going to call on Leo, then I'm going to call on Councilmember Kaplan, then I'm going to close. Remember, we're here on Commissioner Furr's motion. Okay, Councilmember Lincoln, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. And again, I made this point in that that really the two people charged they're top notch, and I don't think anyone can find out that they understand the level of it's study. Back into my thought why I was one, 2 cents. Start charging for events to, but Greg Ross said, I would like, let's just do that middle one now, and then next year, we can spin, then figure out how much money we are making on our events. Is it totally offset what the charge?
Thank you. Leo, you're up, and then Commissioner Councilmember Kaplan. Leo.
Good morning, everyone again. So I was sharing the screen as Isabel asked me to show up what the leveraged funds for the region are. Just like Commissioner Furr brought up before, there were several different unattended regional issues for which the SFRPC has picked up the tab in the last couple of months, and these all require capacity. So we have to remember that for every $3 that come from within our region, we're leveraging $7 additional from state and federal funding. So that is something to contemplate at the time of talking about the fees that we require, because if we get the capacity that we need, then we can leverage more funds from the state and from the federal government for regional purposes.
Thank you, Leo. Councilmember Kaplan, you're recognized, sir.
I would, first a question, I think Leo just spoke to this, but the item F, the updates on programs and policies. lists a variety of funding sources that are not dues related. So
Right.
these funding sources, at least as a present snapshot of what we're doing and the sort of our financial picture,
Mhm.
take into account these various funding sources from DOE and from DOD and et cetera. And based on that information, staff came up with a budgetary recommendation that led to this alternative. That's the correct way of looking at this, right? That's a sequence of events.
Well, you know, it's really like, don't let, what is it, how to say, don't let good be the enemy of excellence, or however it's said. Bottom line is, if I should be asking for 5 cents. Right, so for this is actually.
Can we
I'm-
speak
I'm-
up? I just got a text from somebody saying they cannot hear us very well on
Sure.
Zoom.
That's the first time anybody has ever said they couldn't hear me. Okay,
So
please
I
proceed.
don't, you know, I think that the point is, we're not trying. I don't know, maybe I would be a better leader if I was asking for more, because really we need more. You know, I'm asking for less because I know it's a big lift. It's a big lift, and, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe an extra $100,000 means a lot, or $150,000 means a lot to Broward County, or maybe politically it's very hard to get an extra $200,000, or maybe, I don't know, I don't judge. All I'm saying is that every penny brings in 50,000. The average position costs at least 80, 90, 100,000, and we're missing 4 positions. And we are also increasing our costs. I mean, I would love to think that our events could be such a great moneymaker that we can make $100,000 in events. And I'm not suggesting that you said that, Councilmember.
5 to 15 is a
Yeah,
realistic.
but so, yeah, it's covering, so again, this is a conversation that will be continuing. And I'm grateful for y'all listening to Denise, but I will tell you that we are underfunded, and that in turn limits our ability to bring in more funds. Because we need bodies to do work in order to do work and bring in greater resources. And again, I'm grateful for all you've done for us. I am certainly grateful. But that's just the honest assessment where we are. So,
Okay,
So I'll offer 2 points of perspective and then. we gotta make a
and
decision.
then we're voting.
The first point of, every time we've discussed this over years,
mhm,
the conversation always has to include our prediction of what the reception of the counties is gonna be,
correct.
because we gotta sell
Mhm.
it. Yeah, and we were tentative in years past, but I take your point and I perceive that to be true, and what Commissioner Burr said is my other point of perspective. The existential question, what are we in this game for? If we're not contributing, what are we doing? Well, the truth is, we are contributing qualitatively and importantly, as I see it. We're a bargain. We should charge for these things because they're first rate. And, you know, setting a price level and selling that is a whole nother discussion, but we
Right.
should do that. So I come down in recognizing the need to have more on the revenue side, because we're going to be doing, what we're doing now is great. We're going to be doing more and more often. So if it's a question of taking your suggestion and revisiting this next year, after we see what normalized revenue looks like after additional revenue sources are online, I'm okay with that, but I think we need to raise more money.
Okay. I wasn't sure how that indicated you're going to vote. So the question is, I've listened carefully to the debate. I think everybody agrees that we should be increasing. The question is whether that increase should be to 2 cents or 2.5 cents. I will not be offended. I'm solidly in favor of increasing. I will not be offended if we go with 2 and look to revisit. I would not be offended if we go to 2.5. I had for several years advocated against an increase.
Mhm.
Because I said, as Bell will remember, before I can go back to my county and ask for more money, I have to show them what we're doing. I am satisfied that we have shown to Dade, Broward, and Monroe counties, the county commissions, all the good things that we've been doing. And so I am now comfortable asking for that increase. I will be, if there is a motion from Commissioner Furr to increase it by 0.25 cents, which would take us to 30 cents in 4 years, which would still be the lowest of any of the RPCs. I will be voting for that. If it fails, then we will, I think, immediately ask for a motion to go to 2 cents, with the understanding that we can revisit that in the future. So I have heard consensus for one of those 2 items. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask for a vote on Commissioner Furr's motion to take it to an increase 0.25 over the next 4 years. And if that fails, we will then take a vote on the 0.20 with the understanding that we can revisit. And so does everybody, including those voting remotely, understand? Because I'm expecting this to be a close vote. All right, all those, Commissioner Goldberg, we're about to vote. All those in favor of Commissioner Furr's motion? Yes, all those in favor of Commissioner Furr's vote will vote aye, will respond aye when your name is called. All those against will vote nay when your name is called. Does everybody understand? Please call the roll.
Kaplan.
Second by Kaplan. Okay.
Case,
Nay.
Palladino,
Yes.
Fur,
Yes.
Goldberg,
Yes.
Borland,
Aye.
Kaufman,
Aye.
Lincoln,
Nay.
Ross,
Nay.
Udine,
Aye.
Geller.
Yeah, aye. I have a vote of 8-3. Is that your count?
So 8-3.
Okay, by your vote, please show the motion adopted with an important caveat. There's somebody here from the Dade County Commission, so, you know, we are going to have to discuss this with them. And if Senator Garcia tells us, what, are you crazy? Then there will be another meeting where we may need to reconsider. But right now, we will tell the Dade County members that this has been our vote. All right, it is currently noon, at which point I said we'd adjourn. Obviously, we can't, but at 10 after, quarter after, at the absolute latest, we're done.
The dog's still fine.
So, yeah, I'm not. I have a 12:30 lunch meeting.
Okay, this will be very
yeah.
quick. We can do work plan and then get out.
Yes, okay. Go back to our agenda, Kimco.
Kimco,
Renewal.
so heartily, we've had 4 glorious years here in this wonderful place. So our lease is up for renewal in November. Kimco has sent us information for the renewal. As you will see in the staff report, it's really a very minimal increase. I will say that the only thing I don't like about being here is that we're on a retail lease, which means that we're entirely responsible for anything that happens here. So if somebody were to come and, let's say a coconut flew through the window and broke it, we would be responsible for fixing it. So with that understanding, this is the terms and conditions report. Councilmember Goldberg has always been a great help, as is Sam. So what you'll see is that this proposed agreement, and again, we have to see the actual lease, okay? Represent a 5% increase in the annual base rent. Common area maintenance is 4%. That's what we have in the council. So you will see that we currently pay $1,334, and this will increase a minimal amount. In the 5th year, it'll have gone up by less than $500 per month. So in that respect, I think that the rate is good. I do think that hopefully, as the council moves forward, one day you guys can be once again in a real office space. That is, a real office space. So, because it has been very challenging to be here. But we
Because of
accomplished
parking.
Well, I
Other
also
than that, I'm
accomplished-
fine with
remember
this
when we
space.
moved, it saved us. When we moved here, and that was again 4 years ago, 4.5. We were paying $200,000 a year. We cut that by 100. We were paying $16,000 a month. 4 years ago in our beautiful Venture Corp place, that was pretty shabby actually on the inside, because it was been there for 30 years. And we are now paying 9. So it's not that the council hasn't gone through cost cutting. We have, and so,
Okay.
but you haven't had the joy of walking up the stairs and seeing a giant turd. which
Okay.
we have.
Councilmember for moves to approve.
The deadline was like already, that field hasn't pushed it, but it's dated, the last version they sent me is dated March 30th. So maybe you can look at it over the week.
No, I'm not worried about that. My point is where we are in the market right now with office space, and if you're ever gonna look, this could be the time to look.
I don't think we can.
But the problem is where the most of the offices are situated for
Yeah.
ease of access for everybody. This is such an incredible location.
It is.
Right.
It's very-
Otherwise, you're looking at Cypress Creek Road in 95, or you're going south down the.
No,
Yeah, it's four.
that's too far north.
We couldn't afford it. I don't
Okay.
think to-
All right,
You know, I think-
I'll
Okay.
second.
motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Ross. Let me quickly say, I am fine. He's gonna say, we're gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm fine with meeting in a suburban non-office space. I like the idea of our saving as much rent. The only problem I have with this building is lack of parking.
Right.
But other than that,
So in the contract, can we not request minimum 3 assigned spots?
They
for us?
didn't let us that way.
Oh, they did. All right.
We asked that question
Okay.
before.
so, but other than that, I applaud your efforts to save money by meeting in the suburban. I don't think we need to be in the downtown. Don't want to move further north because that's not fair to people from Dade or Monroe County.
Yeah.
And I wanted to thank, prior to our vote, Councilmember Goldberg for all of his help. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, show the approval of the council for the renewal of the lease. I am going to fly through the next item, which is brainstorm possible topics for regional convenings. Because I was going to discuss voting and we're not going to. So let me explain what our future meetings are. We're, besides the follow-up with the mayor's call on affordable housing, which Isabel is working on, besides the follow-up on the solid waste, which Isabel is working on, we are going to have a joint SFRPC, TCRPC conference, like we did the solid waste. We're going to have a joint SFRPC, TCRPC 6-hour meeting like we did in Davie, which focused primarily on water. We're going to have a SFRPC conference like we did with the first and last mile. So among the other topic, and as chair of the SEDS, we're trying to have meet twice a year just to keep that group together. So the SEDS will have to decide what they want to meet on. That will be a consultation with the SEDS members. Other topics that have come up, and I'm reading this list, I'm going to ask you, not now, but I'm going to ask you to please send your comments to Isabel and Sam this week. And then Sam can distribute them in a manner that will not violate sunshine. So the topics that have come up are the silver tsunami, with mostly about retirement. We are going to have a massive problem in retirement because 401ks were meant to supplement pensions, not replace them. And I don't know how people are going to be most people will be able to retire starting in 10 or 20 years. Mental health, housing, and this one is an important one to Senator Garcia. I've asked him to take the lead on this. There is absolutely a mental health crisis in Florida, including housing. Right now, I can only speak for Broward County, but the Broward County Jail is the largest provider of mental health services in Broward County, and there's just something wrong with that. And there's a real problem with housing. The majority today of the homeless population do have mental health issues. And so there's that issue. Again, we're going to follow up on solid waste. Water, the problem with water is we can't discuss it, it's too big. That has to be a subset of water. I'm leaning towards a regional convening on the fact that all of South Florida will be underwater soon, like what occurred last week, because we were carved out of the Everglades, and in 10 years, we will be returning to the Everglades because our canals will no longer function to drain us. That's part of resilience, sea level rise, the overall affordable housing. Again, the only downside on that is there's been so much discussion of that already, but on the other hand, it may be the most important issue, so maybe we should do a regional convening on that. Seaports and the possible inland port up by US 27. If we do that, that would have to be a joint SFRPC, TCRPC meetings. One of the suggestions was infrastructure dollars. How do we work collaboratively as a region? And I don't know if that'll work, because although we talk working collaboratively as a region, we end up going and fighting amongst ourselves for dollars. Access to quality health care and health insurance, and how do we get more creative with matching funds? These are concepts that have already come up. I will ask, Commissioner Furrow will recognize you, but you'll be the only one I'll recognize. Because remember, I said, we're not going to do this now. Please send us your comments, Commissioner Furrow.
I appreciate that, because what I'm about to say is timely.
Okay.
And at the last convening, we talked about collaboratively, both the Treasure Coast and our planning council, encouraging and supporting a tax hike to the South Florida Water Management District.
That is correct. Let me ask Isabel, if
I
you,
talked with Tom
That's
as well at the last meeting. It sounded like there was consensus there.
right,
When we're looking at infrastructure dollars, and we know it's hard to do it across, but they are already.
Encompassing all of it. That is the place, that is one place that we should be asking. In fact, like to be able to pay for this. Which is, that's a combination of number 10, number 5, and number 4, and number 8. And timing needs to be now, because everybody wants the budget now. We need to be asking them when they are. So that is not necessarily right. Right. That means they're looking at it right now. I believe that we voted already at the SFRPC, TCRPC meeting. Did we take a vote, Sam, do you recall? We did. Yeah, and I was actually thinking we were gonna have to make this agenda. Yeah. That would have done that. I think we've already voted on that, I believe. So what we need to do, Commissioner Burke, on that item is we need to bring up, do you believe, let me just throw this out. The SFRPC, TCRPC have already jointly voted at our water to ask the South Florida Water Management District to increase. But the question is, I think we're saying that we were going to ask our county commission to do that as well. We had said that we were going to do that back here and make it. That's what okay, actually, then we don't. Okay, so then if that's the case, we need to letter. In the interest of time, let me say, in case the SFRPC and TCRPC did not formally approve this at the last meeting, can I interpret Commissioner Furr's comments as a motion to approve, ask the SFRPC, TCRPC to approve a increase in their millage? Again, since before we take a vote on this,
in 60 seconds or less. The issue is for South Florida, our climate is subtropical rainfall. The reason we are no longer Everglades is because the canals that were built in the 1940s and 1950s drained the area, which works fine as long as inland water is higher than coastal water in the oceans. According to Dr. Verado, in about 10 to 12 years, will be like this. We will no longer be able to drain whenever it rains. That means, you know, lock up your dog, Councilmember Lincoln, because if you leave it outside, the alligators will eat it. Because we're going to be reverting to Everglades. The South Florida Water Management, the Army Corps of Engineers has told us that they can fix this, but it will cost $4 to $5 billion is what they said, which means it'll be more just for the 33 pumps that are necessary. It's about $1 million, 100 million, 10 million per pump. So that comes out to about 3.3 billion. And that doesn't include the right of way, but you have to raise the banks of the canal. So they told me 4 years ago that if everything went well, they got all the money they needed, that they could get this done in 15 years. A month ago, they're consistent. They still told me if everything gets done, it'll be 15 years. There hasn't been any movement in their 15 years. So we may need the South Florida Water Management District to take the lead in this. And if we don't, everything from Martin County south to Dade County, I don't think it includes the Keys because you'll be underwater anyhow from the ocean rise, but the rest of us will be underwater from rainfall if we don't get them to do something. Councilmember Perkins.
Last, I think it's very important for once we begin raising money, but we're gonna need matching money from and we need to show that we're willing to take care of this ourselves. From all these counties. We're in it, we're gonna do everything we can to take it. Obviously, we're gonna need help. If we have nothing to show, you and I have seen what happened just trying to get with the.
We got that.
It took us years to get $1 million.
Yeah.
Just to do a study. Years. Which is, and we can't wait to continue.
So, is there any discussion? By the way, is there a second to Commissioner Furr's motion? Seconded by Councilmember Kaplan. Discussion. All those in favor, please. Yes.
So. So it needs to be clear. I mean, there's a difference between the rollback rate or increasing.
We're asking them to increase the millage because this is a life or death issue for South Florida. But we're not saying how much. We're just saying we are requesting an increase for the specific purpose of dealing with this one life or death issue for South Florida. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Show that adopted unanimously. Yes. It's now 12:15. There are other items on the agenda, but I'm going to ask at this point in time for a motion to adjourn. Yes.
This commission will check in with please speak on.
Okay, so I'm opening public hearing on comments. I'm closing public hearing for comments. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Kaplan, seconded by Councilmember Ross. Please show us adjourned. May 2nd, any date, any time certain.